guys, welcome to the channel and welcome out to 458 Destroyer's Garage. In today's video, I want to share with you guys what is probably the wildest, most desirable new Ferrari on sale today. Welcome everyone to the newest addition to 458 Destroyer's collection, the Ferrari 812 Competizione. Now this thing is absolutely wild, so much so that I really don't know where to start with this car, so I think the best place to start would probably just be explaining what the Competizione is and how it differs from the 812 GTS we have parked across the garage over there. Now, the short, easy answer to that is that the Competizione is one of Ferrari's special, number-limited track variants of its GT car. But as you probably already know with Ferrari limited editions, this goes so much farther than just painting a stripe on it and giving it a new name. So let's talk about all the improvements that they made with the already incredible Ferrari 812 GTS and Superfast, and what sets this car apart and makes it so incredibly special. This particular 812 Comp and 458 Destroyers collection is finished in what Ferrari calls glossy piano black. A very fitting name. This car looks so deep in person, and obviously down the center here we have what Ferrari calls, and I kid you not, glossy spice orange, and that's also the same color of all the accents around the car and the interior, which we'll check out later. I think this color combination looks super unique. It's really cool, and black, obviously with all of these new aero parts that the Competizione comes with, just looks so menacing. The first thing that you'll notice about an 812 Comp versus a standard 812 GTS or Superfast, if you can even call those cars standard, is all the additional aerodynamic pieces and all the bodywork changes around the car. Now, all of these new pieces and new winglets, fins, and carbon fiber are all functional. We have these massive new inlets in the front for cooling. We have all of these little inlets here around the front lip that channel air exactly where Ferrari's engineers need it. Everything is functional, and it's so cool to get up close and see all of the details and how much thought went into designing every part of the car. I mean, these carbon fiber inlets look so cool. They're also really good at collecting leaves. We took the car out earlier. And moving beyond the front bumper, of course, one of its signature pieces is this beautiful piece of carbon fiber that runs across the hood, all the way across the hood. And a lot of people call this the boomerang. I don't know actually what you should call it. It's just a beautiful piece of carbon fiber that runs all along the hood. Again, this is one of those features that's there as a function, not just to look cool. It's there to help generate downforce and channel some of the hot air from inside the engine bay for cooling. And continuing the added aero updates, we have these really cool channels, these carbon fiber channels that run from behind the front wheel well, probably to help relieve pressure within the wheel well and run up the really sculpted door here. And we also have the addition of a carbon fiber splitter that runs all along the bottom. And another one of the signature differences between this and a normal 812 Superfast is the deletion of the rear window. There's actually no glass back here, so when you're sitting in the cabin, you can't see behind you. What you do have is this little camera here, which we'll talk about a little bit more later when we're looking through the interior. It's kind of cool. The actual rearview mirror is a camera, but we've got a number of these vortex generators that run along the back. Everything is designed to channel air exactly where it should go. And we also have the addition of this really big raised up lip spoiler that runs all along the width of the car and channels nicely into the rear fenders. And as you would expect from a Ferrari hypercar, there is a gigantic carbon fiber diffuser that runs all along the back. And another one of my favorite design elements that's also super functional are these really cool slats here behind the rear tires. This is really cool from a design element because it harks back to old vintage Ferrari race cars and things like the 288 GTO. However, they're here on the 812 Comp to help generate airflow from inside the rear wheel well to relieve pressure and channel all that air towards the diffuser. It's really cool. You can see all the way through it. Another really cool design element about the 812 Comp are these sculpted exhaust tips that fit perfectly inside the square well along the diffuser. Now this car is gonna get an exhaust at some point, but we're hopefully gonna keep these tips because they just look so cool. And then another sign that the 812 Competizione is a serious track car are these beautiful and extremely expensive carbon fiber wheels. I'm gonna be really careful when driving it because I do not want to chip one of these. I do not want that bill. And then something I also passed over real quick, but I want to point out are these hand-painted emblems. Most Ferraris have where the body panel is sunken in and they're applied to it. This is Ferrari's hand-painted emblem. Now, all of these design updates not only add to making the 812 comp look so much more aggressive than a standard 812, but also act as a much more functional aerodynamic management system across the whole car. In fact, this car, Ferrari claims, generates about 30% more downforce than a standard 812. Before we take a look at the interior, let's pop the hood and talk about all the changes that they made to the already fantastic 6.5 liter V12 in the 812 GTS. Whereas the standard 812 GTS had to make do with only 789 horsepower, the 812 Comp develops 819 horsepower and 513 foot-pounds of torque. In order to get that boost in horsepower, Ferrari gave this car new cylinders, lighter titanium connecting rods, a new intake, new heads, and a new crankshaft. And all of those things add up to not only more power, but more of the good stuff, RPMs. Whereas the 812 GTS has to make do with only 9,000 RPM. I know, 9,000 RPM is not enough. This car revs, sings, and screams all the way up to 9,500 RPM. It's crazy. Now, I'm gonna talk about this more later, but this car puts me in mind of back when the first time I got a chance to drive a Honda S2000. Because that car revved to 9,000 RPM and it felt like it was gonna blow up. It felt like it was something you shouldn't be doing with it, but it handled it just fine. And that's exactly the character that this extra RPM and this extra performance and this extra boost of everything gave the comp. However, we'll get to that a little bit later when we drive the car. So for now, let's take a look at this absolutely beautiful matching interior. Obviously the seats are matching spice orange just like they are on the stripe and all the other accents of the car. And I think this really sets it out and makes this car so much more special. I mean, in fact, this is a limited series Ferrari hypercar, so you might as well go a little bit crazy. You don't want to be subtle. This car is not about subtle. This car is about turning everything up to 11. We have the beautiful orange stitching along all of the trim, all carbon fiber doors. As we'll hear later, there's definitely less sound deadening in this car than there is on the standard GTS. Everything is very comfortable, very well laid out. One difference you will notice though is that we have a fire extinguisher in the floorboard of the passenger seat in case you get a little too squirrely on the track, which is something I'm not going to do. This car is far too valuable to be messing about. We also have a silver center gauge cluster that matches the edges of the exterior stripes, which I think that's a really cool touch to the car. We've got 812 Competizione here on the dash. And here in the center console, just like a lot of the new Ferraris, we have what harks back to, obviously, the gated shifter design. Ferraris, do I wish there was a gated manual? Of course I do. But this 7-speed dual clutch transmission is so good, and this car is so quick, I can live with that. Now, we've talked about the aero, we've talked about the engine, we've gone over the interior, so let's take a look at what's underneath this carbon fiber hatch. Like, what exactly is back here? Well, as it turns out, not a lot actually, which is a really good thing because that means this is still a very usable trunk. I mean, there's tons of trunk space in here. Unlike the SF90 that I just finished filming a video for, that has absolutely no trunk space, it's a joke. This, just like the regular GTS, I mean, potentially could be an awesome Grand Tourer. We do have this little carbon fiber liftable shelf tray back here, and underneath it we can see all of the specs of the car. It's a really cool touch. And then obviously this beautiful carbon fiber underside, this exposed carbon fiber underneath the rear hatch. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely fit a weekend's worth of luggage back here. I think I'm gonna ask 458 Destroyer if I can borrow this car on my next road trip. This might be the perfect getaway car. One other wild, crazy fact about the 812 Comp that I thought was super interesting that I wanted to share with you guys is that you've probably heard of rear wheel steering before, where obviously the rear wheels steer. But the 812 Comp, and I don't know if maybe, there might be other cars that do this, but this car has 4-wheel independent steering, which means at any given time, every single wheel could be pointed in a different direction. Now, obviously, you have tons and tons of computers to help manage that system, but that's crazy to me to think that there's so much going on in this car to help make it as fast as possible. And I've heard of rear wheel steering before, but never independent rear wheel steering, which that's just crazy. That's so cool. Now, I think that covers pretty much all of the interesting facts that make up the 812 Comp. So now it's time to drive it and see how much better it is than a standard superfast GTS. Let's do it. So we talked about all of the changes and performance differences between this and a standard 812 Superfast or GTS, but how does that translate to how it feels to drive on the road? I can say right off the bat, Having spent a good bit of time with the 812 GTS in the garage, this definitely feels different. It certainly feels edgier. I really like these seats a lot. And straight away too, in race mode, the shifts are just like so much more direct. I mean, it really kicks you in the back. That's that really satisfying dual clutch transmission, just really, really giving you the gears that you need in a really aggressive manner, and it's awesome. I love it. And of course, to be back in a Ferrari with a V12 soundtrack is my favorite. I love the soundtrack of this car. And also, the more time I spend in the interior, these seats are so cool in person. I don't know how they're coming across on camera. I hope they come across well, but this orange, it looks so good. It makes the car feel really, really special. But man, I'm telling you, just the directness of the transmission really, really puts it like on edge. One of the cool facts about the car was the fact that it has that four-wheel independent steering, and unlike the SF90 that I just got done driving filming another video, that car felt a little bit too much on back roads. This thing still feels right at home, something that you really want to just continue driving on these windy, twisty, narrow backcountry roads. I really love it. This car is so wildly impressive. And that V12 is just the best. And whereas the standard 812 revs to 9,000 RPM, this car revs to 9,500, which is just ridiculous. So that actually brings up a really good point too, because one of my first sports cars I got the chance to drive was a Honda S2000, and to this day, it definitely in the top 10 favorite cars ever made. But I remember the first time I drove one, and if you're unfamiliar, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder that revs to 9,000 RPM. That's crazy, and every time I would drive that car, I kept thinking, you can't do this. This has got to blow up at some point. 9,000 RPM is too much. I shouldn't be doing this. Which I think is what gave that car so much character and was so special and memorable. And I have to say that the V12 in this car reminds me of the S2000. 9,500 RPM, you shouldn't be able to do that. This is something that's like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong with it, like I'm not supposed to be doing. Which, come on, let's be honest. Whenever you're kind of on the edge of things you should be doing, you know, I probably shouldn't be doing this. That's when it's the most fun. They've done such a good job at making the car feel special and just seriously being super track focused. I think they could have made the car a little bit edgier. Just a little bit. Not that anything isn't absolutely brilliant about the car. Give me a little bit of sketchiness. Just a little bit. Give me enough sketchiness to feel like I'm doing something crazy, but don't let me actually kill myself. I feel like somebody could actually, and I'm pretty sure 458 Destroyer probably does, drive this car every day. Like, this could be a daily driver car. One of the best cars in the garage, and definitely one that I'm going to jump for the keys for if they're offered. Anytime we take these kind of back road trips or cruises or anything like that, this is the one that I want. Well, actually, I take it back. The F40 is the one that I want, but if I want to actually enjoy, really like driving fast, this car feels so good. These shifts though. And with all that extra sound deadening not in the car, you can hear the gravel, which this actually, I don't like to hear this, but you can hear the gravel being picked up, all the tiny rocks from those super sticky tires just being thrown around. I don't like being able to hear those, but it's one of the things that's like an indicator that they've definitely removed some of the sound deadening from the interior. We're gonna go ahead and head back towards the garage. Gonna meet up with 458 Destroyer, and we're gonna take a few more cars out for some more content. I have had a blast in this car. It's so surreal to drive something like this. That is so much fun that it should be illegal. Professional driver, closed course. Well, that's about all I have for this video. There's not much else to say about the 812 Comp other than it's incredible. It's so incredibly special and it feels that way to drive. But it's time to put it back. If you happen to be new to the channel, what's up? My name is Charlie. I help make content with the channel. If you like the video, make sure you click the like button. If you are new, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe, share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about anything, leave them down in a comment below, and hopefully I will catch you guys in the next video. But until then, I'm gonna get back to driving because that's just what I want to do with this.